seance is communication. It is a communal gathering. It is a way to connect with spirits and a way to connect with, I guess, your spiritual self in and with community.
I would say there's like a ritual technology that allows us to commune with the unseen, and I think that has both like spiritual and political and social layers.
I think the only other thing I would add is just that it's a method for allowing things to emerge. You don't need to go into it trying to achieve a particular outcome. It's really a space and a forum for just being open to whatever emerges and receiving it in a way that is kind to both you and whatever that other factor might be.
I'm June, pronouns she, her, and I will be playing my instrument called ephemeres, which is a feedback instrument based around vocal resonance, and it does not use vocal cords, and so it sounds like a synthesizer coming out of your mouth, which is a really fun and exploratory effect that I think will work well with the sort of like unusual nature of being here in the woods playing our electronic instruments.
I'm Courtney, pronouns she, her. Actually, I think I'm going to take a step back from the electronic augmentation for one day only. For the seance, I'm going to bring my shruti box, so totally unaugmented, but a shruti box is basically it's kind of like an accordion. It's a system of bellows that's used to produce the underlying drones that are used in Hindustani and Carnatic music. So I want to basically provide a foundation for us to work with. There's also a huge role that drones have to play in ritualistic chanting, so providing some kind of a base support on which further and further chants can be built, and then allowing room for lots of dynamics and growth to happen. So again, leaning into the more ritualistic behavior of music and the ways that we kind of feel and embrace sound as vibration.
My name is Bukama Kodru. I use they, them pronouns, and I work across ritual practices, movement, and visual art. And in the seance, I'm gonna take more of a facilitator role, where I'm gonna be inviting people at the beginning to connect with their senses and with their bodies and with their breath. Through very soft invitations. So the guidance will be very invitational and very focused on people's autonomy and consent. And I'm going to guide that at the beginning, and then connect and invite people to go further into a visual art practice that is very experimental and open. To connect the kind of channeling we want to do from the unseen, from the spirits of the land, try to translate that collectively, communally, through a symbolic practice. So trying to translate the kind of languages and the whispers of the land and the strange sonic worlds that we will find here into our own authentic symbol language that we can create. So we will arrive at like a communal language at the end.
Hi, my name's Adam, and I am an electronics enginear and feedback instrument builder. I'm bringing an instrument to the seance. It used to be an auto harp. I took the auto part off. Now it's a zither, I guess, and it's plugged into electronics. None of it really has a name yet. And the instrument, I'm hoping to kind of, as the seance begins, start off by playing it myself, but eventually be able to invite other people to play as they kind of watch how it's done, and It's not hard to play, which is what's nice about it. You can coax a lot of sounds out of it by just kind of watching how someone else does it first and then going on to play it yourself. So kind of a participatory instrument in this instance.
There's many times when I'm performing, often with saxophone or with another instrument, and then it does feel like a spiritual practice. And sometimes it's hard to describe like what that means, whether or not that there is something that is controlling me, or especially because I'm improvising something that when you're improvising, you're taking in the environment and you're playing sort of in tune with the environment in some ways, whether that's like a stage and an audience, or some non-hierarchical situation, like with like people in a circle, or just with other musicians, and you're sort of taking in their feedback and their expressions and their way of making music, or the environment that you're playing in that brings out the music that you're playing. And in that way, music is a great way, I think, to connect with the land and with the spiritual elements of the land.
I liked the points you brought up about like feedback music in general, and I think a lot about like, it's like back when I was taking like calculus and like chaos theory and like initial conditions being very like this is like butterfly effect type stuff. Where the instrument is in its current state helps dictate where it goes in the next states, and it's not, which is very different than what you said about like instruments that we want to be very controllable. You press this button and this thing happens. Whereas with a lot of feedback instruments, what it's currently doing impacts what it's about to do. The system kind of has, I guess, a memory that's again being more like control theory perspective on it. But I think it's very much about like being in the now, and like you can't really plan a performance with it. It just what emerges, and depending on the construction of the instrument, you can kind of balance how much control you might have. You can try to program in more control. You can try to program in more chaos. But I think what's especially like fun and interesting about the instrument I brought here today is that I'm not really doing any control or mapping. It's just like the strings speak how the instrument wants them to speak, paired with this feedback system.
But basically what we know about the Wick woodland is actually that it's a very new forest, like woodland, and it was created specifically as a response to climate activism in the area, who are fighting against the creation of the motorways that you can hear right now, and they're around here and they're kind of containing this woods. And even though the climate activists at the time did not manage to stop the creation of the actual motorways, which they were fighting against, they managed to get this as a response to that. And I think that the contradiction about that, the existence here of this place, that it's in a way maybe a beautiful or a positive reality of political involvement and political resistance. I think like one thought that comes to mind is talking about, at least for me, it feels important that I think our experiment, our experimental seance feels very connected to accessibility for me, in a way where maybe like these processes sometimes have been at the fringes, while also I think a lot of people, including myself, I'm not a musician, I have a different kind of role here. Sometimes it's hard to connect with sound making that feels like you can just feel comfortable to do that communally. Like we lost that communal ritualistic aspect that allows you to just kind of be very comfortable in sound making. It became something that feels very professional, right? And very, in a way, maybe in that sense, sometimes gate-kept from people who just need to do that as a healing, participatory practice.
I think I just wanted to make one quick note in that if you are familiar with the term seance and like what seances have been historically, the seance comes from more of a lineage of necromancy, of calling upon the human dead to speak with them as a way to manage things like grief and loss and sort of like the destruction of human lives, specifically during the world wars. We're not doing that per se. Our focus is more on, the spiritual connection with each other, with the land. We are mourning to some degree, the way in which the land has been captured and developed and transformed by human civilization. So there is that element of that. However, it's not literally bringing upon human spirits to talk with them directly.
No, I think it's really important to caveat that. There is a tradition of seance and ritual practice that obviously is entangled with what we want to do, and being really clear about our intentions behind it. I think there's also probably, it might be worth addressing the fact that some people will hear the word seance and think of something that's kind of negative, or the act of summoning spirits to do particular bidding or control them somehow. And I think it's also really important to understand how the idea of witchcraft and seance and this kind of connections, number one, has historically emerged as the fact of people, typically women, existing outside of the norms of society, that we have labeled certain things to be abnormal, and therefore, because they are deviant, they have become associated with witchcraft. So in its history, we have that element. And then now we've got the kind of vilification of spiritualism, of animism, of other practices that are associated with land and nature, connection to the body, to the earth, that have been viewed through contemporary culture as being, I don't know, for lack of a better word, just kind of nonsense. That there's been this kind of hegemony post-industrial revolution to marginalize these kinds of non-scientific practices. So whilst, we're not engaging so much in that necromancy origin, there is this lineage and connection to witchcraft, ritual, spiritualism that we're trying to bring up. Again, to focus on the marginalized, the queer, the radical, the little bit of anarchist kind of position that has been, consistently squished over time at the expense of maintaining control.
You said nonsense, and then I thought of non-seance, and I don't know if you do that.
Non-seance.
But you all have to hear it.